Hey everybody, welcome back. Now that we're done with the deck lid, I'm going to move on to putting some flanges on this header and finish this header up. So, on these slip joints, you can probably see that it's been leaking, and I put Permatex Ultra Copper on it, and it just didn't hold up, so it's going to be getting flanges, and then I'm also going to be making some different covers for this that come up and around, but I'll be doing that when it's on the engine stand. I'll just be doing the flanges today, and then I'll also be moving around this pipe, get it away from the body, so I'm going to have to be doing some cutting and welding on that. That'll get a joint. Where's the other one at? I guess I only have to do 3 because this pipe is continuous. So both the J tubes and then this cylinder right up here. And then once that exhaust work's done, then I need to pull the body apart and do that rear piece of tin. But for now we're going to be doing the exhaust, finishing that up on this episode of the Herbie rebuild session. So anyways, I'll get one of these flanges mocked up, and then we'll put you guys back on here in a minute. Alright, so I got this pipe semi-prepped, but I ran into a problem. It's going up against the bracket for the thermostat, so I'm going to pull that bracket off and trim it back. I already marked it. That way it won't hit. And that should be okay. Alright, so I got this tacked in. And what I ended up deciding on doing was I cut this much out of this header pipe here, which moved the flange back and kept it away from the thermostat there. So I figure this will be easiest to try to keep that as flat as I can for making the tin work come up and over that flange. So yeah, I don't know. I might make a bracket coming off the bolt or something like that to bolt the tin to. We'll see. Just have to kind of wing it as I go. So yeah, that's tacked into place. I got the J-tube bolted up tight. So next step is the other J-tube, and one after that. Then we'll fix that other header that's close to the body. So on to the next pipe. Here's how this side turned out. Got that tacked in, didn't have to trim anything off. There are some interesting oil leaks going on back here. I don't know, maybe the oil cooler was leaking. See that right there with the Type 3 deflector tin, which dribbled down on here. I don't know, the whole engine's kind of oily, so we'll address that later, but let's see. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to move that sucker way apart to be able to get a flange in there. Here we are the next day, getting started on that last pipe. Got the wheels off, got this fender off. This one's coming next. And then I'm gonna pull the rear apron, make it easier on myself instead of being underneath there grinding and welding. So I'm gonna put the camera down and we'll get to work. Alright, there's the back half torn off. So now I'm going to have to figure out a way to re-angle this pipe and drop this down. Had plenty of room back in here, so I'll figure something out. So I'm going to get this thing unbolted at least and use my imagination on some of this stuff. See what I can come up with, then we'll put you guys back on. So I ended up making a couple cuts in this primary pipe for cylinder number 2. Got that tightened up, and you can see it dropped it down quite a bit. So I haven't welded this, so it can still move around to where I need it. So next up, I need to modify this pipe, bring it down to meet. And I'm sure I'm going to have to make another pie cut in here and angle this back up. But we'll see. I'll put you guys back on when there's more progress. So here's how it's fitting. This can still get pressed down some more when I go to tack it. Then I'll have to cut this flange back or weld it here and then put the flange in over here. Well, that's close to the body, never mind. I'll have to figure out another place to put the flange, because obviously it's not going to fit right there in between that pipe. But yeah, I made a section of or a couple pie cuts to get this pipe to angle down, and they fit together, and that dropped it down quite a bit. So I'll have to put the body on, or the back clip on, and then see what kind of clearance we got. Alright, let's put the back half of this body on temporarily and see how close that header is now. Here's how it looks. Turn on the light. This pipe is closer than the other one is now. There's a finger's width in there. And this may have gotten a little warm. It's going to be about his finger's width, but it always was. And this, that never melted or anything, so that's a good sign. Down here, though, that's where the other pipe was. I can stick both fingers in, and I'll make sure it's pulled down when I weld those up. But yeah, awesome. You can see where it was rubbing before, so it's away from that now. Awesome. Well, that's a good sign. I'm not moving this pipe. It is what it is, and it didn't seem to have burnt anything before, so must be alright. But I'll tack these up, all the little pie cuts, and I'll figure out where I'm going to put that flange, whether I'm going to cut this section back and have the flange right behind this, or if I'm going to move it somewhere else. Alright, I'll put you guys back on in a minute. I'm going to take the back half of this body off. You know what? It's always good when you catch yourself on something before you get all the way done. Now I've made sure to keep the exhaust gaskets in here to not move the header around during this whole thing, but as I'm tacking these on, I didn't put any gaskets in between. So before I weld this or tack it on, I'm going to put a gasket in, and I'm going to have to take off the J-tubes and grind the welds on the smaller pipe to space it out, because this thing's all been set you know, with no tension on it. I don't want that to be an extra 1/8 inch whatever pushing up this way or putting stress on the J-tubes. I think that would be a good way for, it probably wouldn't really hurt much, but either way, I caught myself now, so while I'm doing the welding stuff, I'm going to go ahead and fix that up. So I was looking back in the video, kind of think about where I could put this flange. This only has about that much pipe coming through, and I just don't think that there would be the room. There might be, but I think there's enough room right here. So I'm going to put a gasket on this, take this pipe back apart, put it back together, and then another thing I'll do too is I guess I'll sand where it's going to be tack welded on the pipe. And then once I make sure there's enough room for this flange, then I'll pull the body back off and mark where these things are going to sit, and then cut the pipe right in the middle. So I'm going to get to doing that. I'm not going to put you guys back on for putting the body on and off. You guys kind of get the point. So I'll show you how everything's looking after I get the gaskets in and that stuff taken care of. Alright, got this thing all prepped. Gonna throw some tacks on this sucker. Alright, so now that all this stuff's tacked up, I'm going to start unbolting everything and weld this header up. And then we'll bolt it on one more time to see how everything fits. Alright, here we are all bolted together on the ground. I'm going to start welding this sucker up. So here's how it turned out. Got everything tightened up except for this joint, and you can see it's not too far off this way, but it definitely left a gap after all that welding. It's not quite 1/4 inch, so I was thinking of putting another flange in between there, but what I think I've come up with is, I'll put you on the stand and show you. So these are what the gaskets look like that I'm going to be running on all the flanges, on the primaries and in between. But right in here, what I think I'll do, let me move this camera so you can see a little better. So I don't know if you can tell, but this flange is kind of angled like that, and it's also a little lower. So if I pull this up, the V-band down here doesn't move, but it makes it pretty much a square, or at least as square as it's going to be, surface. And then I have these slip-in solid copper exhaust gaskets, and 3 of them seem to fit the gap pretty well. I'm going to put these bolts in real fast just to kind of show you. This is all just mock-up. I still have to grind the surface where they sit so they tighten down squarely, but I think something like that is what I'll have to do. And then I'll use the Permatex Ultra Copper like I did up here on the flange faces before. I'll just do a thin coating and smush her on down, but besides that gapping out like that, turned out pretty well. So I'm going to get this bolted up and tightened down, at least snugged up, and then I'm going to bring the back half of the body on and bolt that on and make sure that where the turbo is placed, make sure that pipe didn't get bent forward or backward. I finished welding that V-band up too. So, if everything bolts up and is where it needs to be, then we're good to go and this project's done as far as the exhaust, and then we can move on to the next step. So, I'm going to tighten this up and bring the body over, so hang tight. Looks like everything bolted up how it was supposed to. Kind of hard to see in here, but let's go on the bottom side. Turn on some light. Yeah, that was touching there. So you can see I got a lot more clearance out of that now. Awesome. Let's see if I can fit my fingers up. Yeah, I got maybe... Oh shit, got my ring stuck. With this pipe here, I got maybe up to this joint on my finger up top for clearance, and that pipe I didn't change, so... But there is a different engine mount set up in this thing this time. So anyways, that got away from the body. That's gonna have to do. That's the unfortunate part about heat, you know what I mean? It's gonna change stuff where it's sitting. But overall, I'd say that was a success. I'm glad I got those flanges on. We don't need to have any leaks. And got that pipe moved away from the body. I'm going to call that good for this video. So next up, I got to tear all this back half off again, and then pull the fan shroud off. And I found another fan shroud where I'm just going to basically cut it. I'll have it so it sits on the block, so I'll just cut it along the top and then have the parts for the oil cooler mount back there so I can put the ducting. And then reshape the body back here so it's not up against it, and figure out this rear tin. And then this thing's gonna be pretty much all the fab work will be done then. Yeah, and then it's final assembly and paint. And there's a few, obviously I'll be going through the motor just to be checking everything out, so I'll put you guys along for that. And then yeah, just painting stuff, cleaning up wiring, so there'll be update videos as I go along, but this was another thing checked off the list. So thanks for watching, thanks for subbing, and until next time, we'll catch you guys on the flip side.